Good morning and welcome to another ATAP security deep dive discussion on our safety series here. With me, of course, is our behavioral analyst, Jackie Noto. Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning. How are you, Anthony?
I am excellent. I'm excited to help some folks get an overview here of all the discussions that we've done through this series.
Absolutely, me too.
Well, and I know you started it off. So as we look at that first discussion or that first safety tip, what's your takeaway from that?
So, when we're reviewing your levels of situational awareness, one of the big safety tips that's a huge takeaway here is ensuring that you're continually evaluating your surroundings. And I talked about this a lot in my 60-second overview that I previously did for our 60-second safety tips. But you want to be looking around your surroundings for any sort of anomaly that might be present, anything that doesn't really seem to fit in with where you currently are. If it's 90 degrees and someone's in a long sleeve shirt and sweatpants, that's probably a strange occurrence. And those are the sorts of things we should be aware of. Or even a great example, the other day, I went outside to check my mail and I noticed that there was a large white SUV slowing down next to a group of children walking home from school. This is something that you wouldn't typically think, oh, red flag. But when I see any sort of vehicle slowing down near children, it's a red flag. So, sorts of things like that that don't really fit in exactly in the environment, or if it makes you feel strange at all. If any of your sensors are going, if any flags are going off, if any alarms are ringing, listen to that and make note of what's taking place. Even like something I wish I did was I wish I had a notebook to write down the license plate when it happened. I wish I had the idea of mine to take out my phone and take a picture, but I was just so focused in the now and the current, which I mean, I can learn from these safety tips too. So stuff like that, evaluating your surroundings, looking for those anomalies, those differences is a really big safety tip takeaway, I would say, for my first little video that I talked about.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, it's room for growth, but that's an experience. Cops don't automatically come out of the academy and know to track license plates, right? You have to go through that process of seeing the vehicle, recognizing there might be something there worth noting, and then getting the license plate. And that gets, but it's that familiarity, it's that awareness, right? And you don't have to, I love how you said, just make a note of it. You don't have to call the cops every time. You don't have to, scream danger at the kids every time. It's what does the situation lead you to? So that's a great tip.
And actually, following the interaction, I told one of my friends about it, and she sent me this mini composition notebook with the title being License Plate Numbers and Suspicious People and More, just so I can have a little notebook to take those things down if I ever need to.
There you go, right? And whether you do it that way or take photographs, like you said, there's an array of avenues that people can take to help improve their safety and the safety of their community.
Absolutely. And I think it's important too to dissect the difference of, you're not being a nosy neighbor if you're looking out for the safety of those around you, if you're looking out for the children, for the elderly, for your neighbors, for your friends. There's a difference between being in someone's business and keeping an eye out for general safety. So, especially if you're just taking notes on your own that may or may not be used, continue to do it. It's going to make you feel better as an individual. And if something were to happen, you do have a record of those things taking place.
And just to get the legalese in, this is places that you have a legal right to be. You're
Oh, of
not
course.
trespassing on somebody's property or snooping in backyards. This
Or
is
trash cans.
leave that to the professionals. This is what things that we can do as everyday citizens.
Absolutely.
And we move from that to the 60-second safety tip that I had talking about preparing for action, right? The knowing that bad things might happen anywhere you go and taking that time before they happen to kind of think through what could happen and how you would respond to it. I think that was one of the tricks I learned as a young officer and preparing for every call that I went to. What's going to happen and how can we handle it? It just sets you up to act very quickly in an emergency situation.
And that tip plays amazingly into the next tip that I was going to hit back on. So you're talking about like brainstorming, going through these typical situations that you might be in. Then the next thing based off of our videos, I was talking about decreasing freezing. And how do we decrease that freezing? By one, doing what Anthony was saying and going through and brainstorming those activities, but then two, walking through it, going and having yourself do those actions, putting yourself in a scenario where you have to find a new exit route, where you have to find a weapon that you might have to use, and going through and doing those physical motions so that when the time comes, your fine motor skills have some previous experience doing these tasks. And then
Practice makes perfect.
exactly. Practice, well, perfect practice makes perfect, but we're not
Sure.
looking for perfection, we're looking for action. Any form of action is better than not action. Any form of behavior, any form of response is better than doing nothing. Even if it's not the best, you're still taking steps to increase your safety and to make yourself and your environment more secure for you as an individual, which I think really goes into one of your next videos, which is talking about levels of awareness and attending to those.
Right. And it's not so much that everybody has to know, Jeff Cooper's levels of awareness and how those, where they're at in each kind of color coding at any given minute in their life. It's the recognition that there are different levels of awareness and recognizing, oh, hey, I've just spent the last 10 minutes driving to work in a total whiteout. I have no idea what's going on around me or anything, where the next car is. I really need to be more attentive, right? I mean, that's the simple everyday one, right? And we do the same thing going to the grocery store. We've got so much on our minds. I'm out of work. I got to get the kids to practice. Somebody's got to get dinner on the table, and my daughter's got that project that she's got the extra stuff for school tomorrow. I just got to get through the store and get home. And you're not paying any attention to the guy walking, with a ski mask on into the store in front of you. Probably not the time that you want to follow him into the store, right? It's those kinds of, and granted, that doesn't happen often, right? But we need to be aware of what's going on around us so that when it does happen, I worked as a police officer, followed a kid who, now somebody called, he put a gun into his backpack, but then he put the backpack on and went into the store. And some people who saw him in the parking lot doing this followed him into the store like it was no big deal. Now, I can't say that they all saw it, but they followed him in. And then when I went in as a police officer with an AR-15, a rifle strapped across my chest, people kept going into the store. Pay attention. That's not the time that you want to be in shopping.
Yeah, you might want to, stretch in the parking lot for a little bit. Look at the clouds for a moment. Make sure everything's okay. Maybe go to a different store. Maybe go on a Starbucks run. Come back later. Because while we do want to keep everyone safe, your number one priority as an individual is to keep you safe. So if something feels off or something feels awry, make note of that and leave that situation. And that kind of plays into one of the last videos that I am talking about, and that is establishing those safe zones. So if you are aware of your general surroundings, you're going to be able to establish places in which you know that you are more safe or more secure. And we've talked about this a little in some of our other videos about how, like, your home in theory would be a safe zone. Your locked car would be a safe zone. But it's important to not just see these as always safe, because as we know, things can happen. Things can go wrong, things can go awry. And by establishing safe zones, a part of that is continually ensuring that it's a safe zone. So when you're at your home, your door is locked. You're not sitting there with your patio door open when you're in your office and anyone could walk in. You want to ensure that not only have you established a safe zone, but you're keeping it secure, not only for you, but for anyone else that might be in your home, in your place of work, in your car. And I think an important part of establishing these safe zones too is establishing safe people. And I know that you're going to talk a little bit about that in some code names and code terms, but I also think it's important as an individual, as a civilian, as someone who's surrounded by people that we see all the time, to make notes if their behavior is off, if their behavior is awry, if
Absolutely.
one of your friends, if you find out that they did something that's not good or hurt another person, that's not a behavior you should be supporting. And that's a big part of establishing and securing those safe zones as well, is not engaging with individuals who do have history of hurting other people. We want to ensure that that's not behavior we're reinforcing in any sort of form or fashion.
Absolutely. And looking at people's behaviors, we've worked together to create the ATAP hall monitor. Total aside, no self-promotion there. Uh, but that's based on helping people go through and watch student behaviors and keying in when students are having issues to prevent that kind of crisis. We should be doing that as concerned citizens for everybody around us, whether it's in our family or in our workplace or in our worship environment. We interact with people all the time at the softball field, and when the guy on the other team is behaving differently and having issues, that's a great time just to say, hey, I feel like you're not quite yourself today. Is there anything I can help you with? You're not getting overly involved, but you're showing a little bit of care and concern that can make a huge difference in somebody's life.
And that's one of the great things that I love about ATAP and hall monitor in itself, on that side tangent note, is when you view a lot of security and response and emergency research, it typically has to do on the response end. Something bad happened. What are we going to do now? And I think what's great about these companies, and also about some of these first steps that you can take as action items, is it's not talking about something bad happened. What are we going to do next?
Yeah,
It's what can we do now in case something bad happens? It's that proactive response, which is what honestly can save the most amount of lives. And I think that more research should be doing this approach and going on the proactive approach to make individuals safer, because if we have the knowledge and we have the ability, we should be disseminating it. So I'm so happy that we are doing this discussion and doing some action items for our individuals to follow.
absolutely. Trying to help people make that difference. And that's the last uh, safety tip that we were throwing out in this series is also something that many police officers do, and many people who are aware of the problems in our society will do, is just create a safe word or a code word or a danger word, I think is a better terminology for it, to key their family in, because we all recognize that different people have different awareness levels, either due to a job or due to attentiveness or intention. And so my whole family didn't have to be aware of everything that was going on around us all the time. But I needed them to know that when I said this, it was actually a short phrase. I hate chocolate. I can give it away now because they're all grown and on their own. Something I would never say. But when I said that, they knew it was time to stop goofing around, pay attention, and let's follow the instructions of the person that's been through some training to get us all safer. Because if you have the people around you that you really care about more than the rest, you can't act the way you need to act to deal with the situation. And that's where that comes in. Now, maybe your code word gives a different direction, right? Maybe your code word is, it means they all need to hide under the table. Whatever it is, you have that discussion beforehand so that everybody knows what happens when you say that.
I absolutely agree. And I would share a little more about my family's history with code words, but I'm actually going to save that story for when we talk about child safety and child safety tips and tricks. So stay tuned for that. You can hear
Whole
my
nother series
family
coming up,
code word as well.
right? A whole nother series coming up. So Jackie, always appreciate our conversations.
Me too.
We've been through this material several times in doing these discussions and talking about the results of them, and yet still we have this discussion and new information comes out and new learning comes out.
Every
I
time.
think for both of us, certainly for me. So love having you with us. Thanks everybody for joining an ATAP safety deep dive discussion on our safety series here. Stay tuned for more information and subscribe to our 60-second safety tips.
And stay safe.